I built this container out of garbage I had laying around, and I know it may not look like much, but it is actually one of the earliest forms of radiation detectors called a cloud chamber. This is one of my favorite kinds of radiation detectors because you can actually see the trails of the charged particles going through the air. So, especially for like young kids and stuff like that, it's a very interesting science experiment. And today I want to show you how I made this one out of just scraps and garbage I had laying around. And then we'll use it to look and see some actual trails of radiation. Anyways, I hope you enjoy and follow along.
To start off, let's make the clear top of the container. We're going to need something to cut on, a knife, something to mark with, a straight edge, and some glue. And then we're just going to need the clear plastic that we're going to use. This is just some acrylic from a rear projection TV that I took apart. So it's just some trash I had laying around. Let's just put it to some good use in making this. First, we're going to need to measure out how big we want each side of the container. We'll make our marks and then draw the lines for where we're going to score the plastic. And then we'll just score it with a knife and break it down the score line. Alright, so let's try that again. I guess I didn't score quite deep enough. We'll make our score lines again and then break the plastic down those lines. Well, I'm obviously doing something wrong here, but instead of trying to do it the right way, I just ran this out and cut a strip off with the circular saw in the garage. We'll just go ahead and score each section to the length that we need and then break it off there instead. Now we're going to go ahead and just prep all the edges to glue together. We're going to make 5 out of the 6 sides of this box out of acrylic, so we'll just sand this down, wash it off with some isopropyl alcohol, and then brace it with a piece of steel here and glue it together. I'm using 90-second epoxy to glue this all together. It doesn't really need to be structural, but the most important part is that we seal all the holes and gaps in the side here so none of the outside air can get in. Now that these two sides have set up, we'll pull all these magnets off and get this set off to the side, and we'll get the next two sides set up, prepped, and ready to glue together. Now that we got both of these sections finished up, let's get them joined together, and we'll tape them together just to make sure that none of the glue runs through any of the cracks, and then we'll just fill the edges with the epoxy once again. Just like the other sections of this container, the most important part is that we seal up any holes that would be open to the outside, because when we're finished, we're going to be wanting to contain all the isopropyl vapor that is going to be necessary to view the radiation within this box. If we have too many holes open to the outside, we're not going to be able to get a good equilibrium within the cloud chamber, and we won't be able to view the radiation very well. While all that is gluing together, we're going to take the top piece and we're going to need to cut out a piece of felt, just the right size to go across the top of this, and we will glue it to the top of this plastic. The felt is what is going to absorb and hold the cleaning alcohol when we are running the cloud chamber, so it's important to have this whole piece covering the entire top of the cloud chamber. Now that we've finished with the top viewing portion of our cloud chamber, let's make the bottom. The bottom of the cloud chamber is going to need to be made out of metal, as it will need to be able to transfer heat, or rather, in this instance, cold, through to the rest of the cloud chamber. We're going to be making it out of two pieces. One will just be to glue to the cloud chamber and have a hole through it to the bottom piece, and that piece is going to be the part that is going to actually conduct the heat through to the rest of the cloud chamber. Once again, both these pieces of metal are just some scrap pieces of sheet metal I had laying around, so we can stay true to the making this all from garbage bit that I'm doing for this video. If you're going to make a cloud chamber for yourself, I would suggest spending a lot more time on making the base than I did, because this is one of the hardest parts to do, and it has the biggest effect on how well your cloud chamber performs.
Well, that should be finished gluing. And if we take this and put it on our bottom plate, you can say it looks pretty terrible. It looks pretty terrible, let's be real. But there is a way to maybe not fix it, but at least help that out a little bit. And that is spray paint. So we'll be right back. All right, well, we got it all painted up now. Looks a little better that way. And now we're ready to actually go ahead and use it. So what we're going to have to do first is get a way to cool the bottom down very cold. And I'm just going to use some dry ice to do that. And then we need to wet the inner surface of our felt with some 99% isopropyl alcohol. Now I'm just going to, with the black side facing down, I'm going to clip this bottom plate on. We're just going to use some binder clips for that.
All right, we got everything secured, so let's set it on top of the dry ice, and we'll wait about 15 minutes to get to equilibrium. And then we'll shine a bright light in here. I'm just using a projector, so we'll be able to see the trails left by the radiation. Before we go any further, let's take a quick pause and explain exactly what's going on here. To start off, we've soaked the top of our cloud chamber with isopropyl alcohol. At room temperature, this alcohol evaporates and fills our chamber with isopropyl vapor. As the vapor descends, it gets closer to the dry ice, which is more than a negative 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and it becomes supercooled. In this supersaturated state, it becomes predisposed to ionization. If a charged particle or ionizing radiation travels through it, the alcohol will clump together and create these distinct lines in the air. I did not build this cloud chamber very well, so unlike many examples you may see on the internet, I am not getting a whole ton of radiation trails from cosmic radiation and the like. So to help visualize this, I put a small americium source in the corner here, and we should be able to see some small trails from the alpha radiation coming off of it. Apart from that, we should also be able to see some long distinct trails from background and cosmic radiation. Most of these trails are caused by muons, which are generally spit off as scatter particles from when cosmic rays hit Earth's atmosphere and spit off a shower of secondary particles down through the atmosphere.